Today, Iran and America are enemies. Have been for 50 years. Sanctions, proxy wars, death to America chanted on the streets where American diplomats once had dinner with the Shah. That's the Iran we all know. But for 26 years before that, Iran was America's closest friend in the Middle East. Not just an ally, the muscle, the cop, the country America trusted with its most advanced fighter jets, its nuclear technology, and its intelligence playbook. This is the story of how that happened, and how one toast on New Year's Eve became the last word spoken before the whole thing caught fire. To understand how close America and Iran got, you have to understand how concerned America was. It's the early 1970s. The Soviet Union is everywhere. Communist Vietnam just defeated the United States. The British, who used to police the Persian Gulf, are bankrupt and going home. And sitting right between the Soviets and the world's oil supply is one country, with a king who really wants to be a great power. His name is Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah. And Nixon has an idea. America couldn't be everywhere, so America would build proxies. In the Persian Gulf, two pillars would hold up American interests: Saudi Arabia and Iran. And Iran was going to be the bigger pillar. To make Iran strong enough to be the regional cop, the Shah needed weapons. American weapons. And here's where Nixon does something no president had done before, or has done since. May 1972, Nixon and Kissinger fly to Tehran. In a private meeting, Nixon tells the Shah any non-nuclear weapon in the American arsenal is yours. No congressional review, no State Department haggling. Just pick. No president had ever made that offer. No president has made it since. And the Shah's shopping cart got very big. Between 1972 and 1977, Iran spent roughly $16 billion on American weapons. In today's money, nearly $100 billion. From one country to one supplier. What did he buy? F-4 Phantoms, hundreds of them. Cobra helicopters, howitzers, destroyers, and the crown jewel, the F-14 Tomcat, the same fighter jet flown by the US Navy, the same one Tom Cruise would fly in Top Gun a decade later. The Shah bought 80 of them. He was the only foreign customer, the only one, ever. But the weapons were just the surface. The real relationship was something stranger. Here's a fact that should stop you cold. Iran's nuclear program, the one we've spent half a century arguing about, wasn't built in defiance of America. It was a gift from America. In 1957, under Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace program, the United States signed a nuclear cooperation agreement with Iran. American scientists helped design Iran's first reactor. American uranium fueled it. The Tehran Research Reactor, sitting in the heart of the Iranian capital today, built by us. We handed Iran the keys to the atom and shook hands. By the 1970s, the Shah was planning 23 nuclear power plants. American companies were lining up for the contracts. Nobody thought this was a problem, because the Shah was our guy. You can sell a country jets. You can build them a reactor, but handing them your spy agency's playbook, that's a different kind of close. In 1957, the same year as the nuclear deal, the CIA helped the Shah create a new domestic intelligence agency. Its name was SAVAK. American officers trained its first generation. Israeli operatives trained the next. Within a decade, SAVAK was watching every Iranian university, every newspaper, every mosque, and feeding what it learned back to Washington. For American intelligence, Iran wasn't just an ally. It was a listening post on the Soviet border. Radar stations in northern Iran tracked every Soviet missile test. When the SALT treaties needed verification, America wasn't checking from satellites. America was checking from Iran. The Shah gave us that, and in return we asked very few questions about how SAVAK got its information. January 1977. New president, different frequency. Jimmy Carter ran on human rights. Real human rights, not as a slogan, as a foreign policy doctrine. He wanted to make America stand for something again, after Vietnam, after Watergate. And the Shah's Iran, with its secret police and political prisoners, was exactly the kind of friend that made Carter uncomfortable. You'd expect the relationship to cool, to get cautious. The opposite happened. In November 1977, the Shah came to Washington. The protests outside the White House were so loud that tear gas drifted onto the South Lawn during the welcome ceremony. The Shah and Carter were giving speeches with tears in their eyes from the gas. It was almost an omen. But behind closed doors, Carter didn't push. He brought up human rights privately, gently, and let the Shah brush it aside. Why? Because the Shah was still our strategic ally, still our listening post, still buying our weapons. Carter inherited the twin pillars and didn't know how to pull them down. So, 1 month later, Carter goes to Tehran himself. New Year's Eve, 1977. At a state dinner in the Niavaran Palace, Jimmy Carter raised his glass, and he said that Iran was an island of stability in one of the more troubled areas of the world. He thanked the Shah for his great leadership. He said it was a tribute to the respect, admiration, and love the Iranian people held for their king. Exactly 365 days later, the island was on fire. What happened? Everything Carter didn't see at that dinner. By early 1978, protests were spreading across Iran. The Shah's economic boom had created a massive urban middle class, and that middle class wanted political freedom that the king wouldn't give them. The religious establishment, led from exile by an old cleric named Khomeini, was furious about westernization. The poor were angry about inflation. SAVAK responded the way SAVAK always responded, and the killings made everything worse. And here's the curious part. The Shah was dying. Lymphatic cancer, diagnosed in 1974. His doctors kept this as a state secret, hidden from him, his wife, and from every American official who came through Tehran. The man Carter toasted as the leader of an island of stability could barely stand up by 1978. Washington didn't know. Nobody knew. By January 1979, the Shah's army was disintegrating. His American advisors were sending contradictory cables. Carter's White House was paralyzed. Half the staff wanted to back the Shah harder. Half wanted to push him out and negotiate with the opposition. They did neither. On January 16, 1979, the Shah left Iran. He told his officials it was a vacation. He never came back. 2 weeks later, Ayatollah Khomeini landed in Tehran. The man America had ignored for 15 years, who'd been writing letters from exile in Paris, was suddenly the most important political figure in the country. The Shah's army stood down. The revolution was over before most Americans realized it had started. On November 4, 1979, a group of Iranian students climbed the wall of the American embassy in Tehran. They took 52 American diplomats hostage. They held them for 442 days. By the time the hostages were released, on the exact day Jimmy Carter left office, Iran and America had become what they would remain for the next half-century. Enemies on every front. Sanctions, threats, proxy wars, a relationship that today's viewers under 40 have never known any other way. For 26 years, American and Iran were closer than most NATO allies. The Shah ate state dinners with 5 US presidents. American engineers built Iran's Air Force. American scientists built Iran's first reactor. American intelligence trained Iran's secret police. And on New Year's Eve 1979, Jimmy Carter raised his glass in Tehran and called Iran an island of stability in one of the more troubled areas of the world. Exactly 365 days later, the island was on fire. The Shah was dying in exile. American diplomats were blindfolded hostages. And the country that had been America's closest friend in the Middle East would spend the next half-century chanting "Death to America" on the streets where Carter once toasted. Every record has a B-side. Most people only know the Iran that burns American flags. This was the other side. This is Funky History. Stay funky.